War map reveals Russia's rapid frontline advances. The White House is currently overseeing a surge of weapons to Ukraine with just 50 days remaining until President-elect Trump takes office. According to the Associated Press, the Biden administration has announced $725 million in military aid, including HIMARS and Stinger missiles, as well as numerous anti-personnel mines and other munitions. This aid package is part of over $7 billion approved by Congress in April. These weapons are being drawn directly from America's dwindling stockpiles. On the same day, German Chancellor Scholz also announced an additional €650 million, equivalent to $680 million, in aid for Ukraine. Western allies have emphasized that they want to see Ukraine's military in the strongest possible position before negotiations to end the war take place. However, the question now is, what benefit will NATO's rapid provision of additional weapons bring when the real issue endangering Ukraine's military is the depletion of its workforce? These factors are the underlying causes of the severe territorial losses expected in 2024. The West admits the collapse of Ukraine's front line is only a matter of time. This map illustrates Russia's rapid advances over the past few months, with multiple cities and villages in Donetsk falling one after another. Reports from Western media on Ukraine's battlefield situation over the past month also indicate that key forces have sensed the inevitable outcome of the war. 4 weeks ago, on November 5th, French media ran a headline: Ukrainian defenses in Donbas risk getting steamrolled by Russian advance. France 24 wrote, "On the front lines in Donbas, the situation remains difficult," Ukraine's Army Chief Oleksandr Syrsky said in a telegram message on November 2nd. Ukrainian forces there are holding back one of the most powerful Russian offensives since the beginning of the full-scale invasion, he added. A renewed push by Russian forces that began in springtime now seems to be bearing fruit in East Ukraine. 2 weeks ago, British media wrote, Russian gains accelerate as Ukraine's Kursk-Gamble falters. The ISW data shows Moscow's forces have seized around 2,700 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory so far this year, compared with just 465 square kilometers in the whole of 2023, a near six-fold increase. Dr. Marina Miron, a defense researcher at King's College London, suggested to the BBC that there was a possibility the Ukrainian Eastern Front might actually collapse if Russia continued to advance at pace. More than 1,000 square kilometers was taken between the 1st of September and the 3rd of November, suggesting the push accelerated in recent months. Two areas bearing the brunt of these advances are Kupiansk in Kharkiv region and Kurakovy, a stepping stone to the key logistical hub of Pokrovsk in Donetsk region. A week ago, American media carried the headline, Ukraine War Map Reveals Russia's Rapid Frontline Advances. The Washington, D.C. think tank said on Sunday that recent Russian gains near Vuhledar in Velika Novosilka showed that the war is not stalemated, and the Donetsk region is becoming increasingly fluid with the latest Russian advances. Newsweek has emailed the Russian and Ukrainian defense ministries for comment. Russian forces have seized settlements northeast of Vuhledar and advanced north of the town they had captured in October, according to Ukrainian sources and geolocated footage. 4 days ago, the New York Times reported, Russia forges ahead in eastern Ukraine, capturing more villages in recent days. Russian troops in eastern Ukraine have seized at least 10 villages and settlements in roughly as many days, according to a group with ties to the Ukrainian army that maps the battlefield, as Moscow presses on with slow but steady advances that have heightened pressure on Ukraine's authorities to start ceasefire talks. The situation looks particularly precarious for Ukrainian forces in Donetsk, in Ukraine's east, where Russian forces are closing in on their last two strongholds in the southern part of the region, according to the analysis by the group Deep State. The fall of the strongholds, Kharkov and Velika Novosilka, could pave the way for a Russian takeover of the area, experts say. Russia, which annexed Donetsk in 2022 and controls about 2/3 of the region, is seeking to consolidate power over the whole territory. 5 days ago, a British newspaper wrote, Zelensky suggests hot phase of Ukraine war could end in return for NATO membership if offered, even if seized land isn't returned immediately. The interview is the first time Mr. Zelensky has hinted at a ceasefire deal that would include Russian control of Ukrainian territory. Throughout the conflict, Mr. Zelensky has never said he would cede any occupied Ukrainian territory to Russia. including Crimea, which Russia occupied in February 2014 and formally annexed the following month. It can be seen that President Zelensky has changed his stance. Previously, he insisted that to end the war, Russia must return the territories it had seized from Ukraine. Summarizing the above facts from the battlefield, it is evident that the Russians are in a position where negotiation is unnecessary. If both nations seek a ceasefire, the terms set by Trump's future administration will undoubtedly favor Moscow. With Russia gaining ground on the Eastern Front, the Kremlin will unlikely relinquish anything they have secured. Therefore, the burden of compromise and territorial concessions will inevitably fall on Zelensky's government. That's why the globalist elites are scrambling to seize influence at the last minute before Trump takes power. 2025, the year of tragic endings for Ukraine's army and the restoration of peace. For the first time since early 2022, German Chancellor Scholz traveled to Kyiv by train as Ukraine's front line steadily collapsed. On the surface, his visit was heralded by the media as a solidarity campaign during Ukraine's critical hour, highlighted by the announcement of a €650 million military aid package and a declaration that Germany would remain Ukraine's strongest supporter in Europe. However, upon closer examination, the true hidden purpose of Scholz's trip quickly becomes apparent. According to Bild, the purpose of the visit was to assess the situation of Zelensky's government and Ukraine to determine what they are prepared to do. The hawkish faction may have sent Scholz to Kyiv to gauge Zelensky's administration's mood and understand whether Kyiv aims to end the war or prolong it. Some believe Prime Minister Scholz may have been sent to Kyiv to reassure and urge Zelensky's government not to surrender to Trump's threats. The pro-globalist factions aim at the very least to ensure that any negotiations force Russia to sign the most disadvantageous agreement possible. It is therefore no coincidence that on the same day Scholz was in Kyiv, German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock visited Beijing. Her mission was to urge China to leverage its influence to help end Russia's war in Ukraine, while warning that Beijing's support for Moscow could harm its relations with Europe. However, another perspective suggests that Scholz's visit was to assess Ukraine's current state amid Germany's growing concerns. These include the potential economic impact of Trump's upcoming tariff sanctions and the increasingly unfavorable domestic socio-political environment. Consequently, distancing Germany from the Franco-British anti-Trump alliance could be considered one of the 36 strategies to escape the sinking ship of NATO. The most apparent evidence lies in the remarks of former NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, who even exerted pressure on the military organization itself. In an interview with Table on December 2nd, Stoltenberg admitted that achieving peace in Ukraine without territorial concessions is unrealistic. This reveals a critical shift. After escalating tensions dangerously without achieving their goals, due to the Kremlin's calculated restraint, the pro-war factions have begun to consider relinquishing territory to prevent Russia from seizing strategically significant targets. Russia's territorial expansion and encirclement of Ukraine would undoubtedly deliver a severe blow to NATO while creating a land corridor to Transnistria. The West is urgently sending messages to President Zelensky to secure the best possible deal for themselves and the Kyiv government, essentially anything that would inflict the most significant harm on Russia. The Economist has explicitly highlighted the hawkish faction's concerns that, fundamentally, Trump could impose a disastrous agreement on Ukraine, enabling Putin to achieve most of his war objectives. Kellogg's plan, as analyzed in our video yesterday, reflects an irreversible negotiation process. However, this plan, drafted in April, has not yet been considered an official end-of-war framework. As of now, Trump has yet to unveil any formal plan. This has led some to argue that Trump's promises regarding Ukraine are empty because he still needs to outline a viable peace agreement. However, Trump is a seasoned negotiator, and as he often says, one cannot reveal the details of a plan that is not yet feasible. It may be more effective to secure a deal with Presidents Putin and Zelensky behind closed doors while keeping specific details under wraps for now. Despite Trump keeping the details of his plan under wraps, there are signs that the type of agreement he is pursuing could gain the support of both Putin and Zelensky. In September, J.D. Vance, Trump's vice presidential candidate, proposed a potential solution. The current front line could become a strictly monitored, demilitarized zone to prevent future Russian aggression while Kyiv retains its independence and sovereignty. Russia would receive guarantees that Ukraine would not join NATO and would be allowed to maintain control over eastern and southern territories, currently under its occupation. There is reason to believe Kyiv might accept this agreement, even though left-wing factions argue that Vance's plan aligns closely with Putin's interests. In a significant shift from his previous statements, President Zelensky declared that Ukraine must do everything to ensure the war ends next year through diplomatic means. Notably, most Ukrainians agree with this sentiment. A recent Gallup survey indicates that for the first time, more than 50% of Ukrainians want their government to negotiate a solution as soon as possible. Among those who support a swift peace resolution, 52% believe the Kyiv administration should be open to territorial concessions. It can be said that, following Trump's election victory, Ukraine's leadership has been almost compelled to agree with the idea of exchanging land for peace. On his part, President Putin might also be willing to accept an agreement along the lines proposed by Vance. Although the battlefield momentum currently favors Russia, the military gains have come at a steep price. Russian troop casualty rates appear to be at their highest since the war began. If the conflict drags on into 2025, President Putin may be forced to announce another round of conscription, potentially risking widespread domestic discontent. If Russia and Ukraine move closer to a peace agreement, the most challenging issue will be ensuring post-war security. The Kyiv government hopes to join NATO immediately, a move Russia would certainly take military action to prevent. Even NATO's Secretary General Rutte, on December 3rd, dismissed Kyiv's aspirations by avoiding the topic altogether, stating that the priority now is to strengthen Ukraine's position in any future peace negotiations. As for Trump, his team has discussed a proposal to delay Ukraine's NATO membership for 20 years. Instead, an alternative solution might be allowing Ukraine to join the European Union, which also has its own collective defense agreements. Russia itself is reportedly open to Ukraine's EU membership. Thus, it is highly likely that peace negotiations will commence shortly after January 20th, the day Trump officially takes office. And that concludes our video for today. Thank you for watching and see you in the next broadcast.